Okay. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives to join us this evening, this beautiful June evening. We've reached the date and time called for Gill's annual town meeting. At this time, I'd like to invite Linda, as town clerk, to read the call as well as the return for this year's annual town meeting.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Franklin SS, Town of Gill, Annual Town Meeting, June 17th, 2019. To any of the constables of the Town of Gill and the County of Franklin, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town, qualified to vote in elections and in town affairs, to meet at the Gill Town Hall in said town on Monday, the 17th day of June in the year 2019 at 6 p.m. then and there to act on the following articles.
As has become our tradition, we will forego the reading of all the articles at the moment, as everyone has a copy of them in your hands. If you don't have one, you can get it by the door. We will go over each article as we make motions for them, and now Linda will read the return.
And you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof at Town Hall, Main Road, Post Office, Mount Herman, the Gill Store and Tavern, Main Road, and Riverside Municipal Building, Route 2, in said town 7 days at least before the time of holding said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of meeting as foresaid. Given under our hand this 5th day of June in the year 2019. Select Board of Gill. John R. Ward, Chair. Brandy Crozier, Board Member. Greg Snedeker, Board Member. A true copy attest. Linda Hodgson Mayo, Town Clerk, June 5th, 2019. Pursuant to the within warrant, I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Gill by posting up attested copies of the same at Town Hall, Main Road, Post Office, Mount Herman, Gill Store and Tavern, Main Road, and the Riverside Municipal Building, Route 2, 7 days before the date hereof as within directed. Craig D. Gaudry, Constable of Gill, June 6, 2019.
Thank you, Linda. And I believe Linda has something else in particular she'd like to share. A moment.
Hello and welcome. I'd like to take this opportunity to make a mention of a few changes here at Town Hall. First, our tax collector treasurer, Ronnie LaChance, retired in February. We miss her and her outgoing pleasure as she met each one of you every day she came to work. I know how much she misses Town Hall and doing business with all of you. Ronnie involved herself in every aspect of town affairs she could. She did not just leave at the end of the day, but joined several committees and stayed on into the evening. She religiously came in on Fridays when Town Hall was closed, and she never took the number of vacation weeks she was entitled to because she wanted to be here to do her very best for the town. Fiscal year 2019 should be dedicated to Ronnie LaChance for the 17 tireless years she gave of herself to work at Gill Town Hall. So now, at Town Hall, you will find a new tax collector and a new treasurer. For those of you who have not met them, please let me introduce Tom Hodak of West Gill Road, our tax collector, in the back. And Peter Turbin of Main Road, our treasurer, here in the front. Another change at Town Hall is about to happen. I will be retiring July 1st, 2019, effective for fiscal year 2020. I am excited, but don't ever let anyone tell you retirement doesn't come without moments of concern about your future. But here I have a chance to tell you all that I am so pleased that I've had the chance to be your town clerk. Each one of you who voted for me at each election to give me the opportunity to do this job, I thank you. It has been such a gift for these 16 years. Our select board, following state law for this situation, voted to appoint someone to finish my term. Doreen Stevens of North Cross Road, who has been our assistant town clerk since 2007, received that appointment. I am telling you as your town clerk at this moment that I could not be more confident of this choice and know Doreen will do her very best to serve you well. Doreen is here tonight. And finally, there are many people in this wonderful town who should be recognized for the work they do. Some are people who come to Gill to do something for us and may not return, but others are our neighbors who have been doing things for us in the past year. First, because it is happening right now, the painters from the prison system for the long hours of painting being done on the Riverside building. Also, all the volunteers who came forward for the latter half of 2018 to make the Gill 225th anniversary a great success. The prison group who cleared the additional area next to the Riverside Cemetery for future use. All those involved in the renovations and grand opening of the Slate Memorial Library. Everyone who has contributed extra time and effort to place additional commemorative flags along our main road and town common. The individuals who support the Gill newsletter and who organize and contribute information. And also the dedicated staff of our fire department, noting specifically Ken Sears, who retired after almost 33 years with the department. I go home at the end of my day, but activity at Town Hall continues most every evening. Our town residents, who without compensation show up to give their personal time and effort to make our town better. I have watched this for 16 years, and I have felt such pride. Thank you all. Thank you.
I'd like to add a little bit. You already mentioned
Sure.
Ken Sears. My name is Gill, the fire chief. Ken Sears joined the fire department June 5th, 1986. He became the
Do we have a page for this evening? Do we have someone who will walk the mic around? Okay, sure, great, thank you.
Ken Sears joined the fire department June 5th, 1986. He became an engineer May 1st, 1989. He then advanced to lieutenant, captain. He became fire chief in July 30th, 1998, and stepped down in 2001, April 30th. And he's retiring. June 30th is his last day, and that's over 33 years of service. And Kenny and I go a long way back with Stuart, and a lot of midnight calls, 2 o'clock calls. And I just want to thank Kenny, who's already down in, I think it's South Carolina, enjoying his retirement.
Thank you, Chief Bobian. I am your moderator, Isaac Bingham. It is an honor to be elected to this position. You elect me to make sure these meetings are productive, polite, and conducted according to some simple guidelines. This is an open town meeting, and all Gill residents are encouraged to participate. Anyone wishing to speak during a particular article should raise their hand and wait until recognized by the moderator and a microphone is brought to you. Once you have the microphone, please state your name, the road you live on, and then before beginning your remarks. Lastly, please be patient with your neighbors and with me, your moderator, as I continue to learn the ropes. Thank you. Some of you know that in past years we've split town meeting into 2 meetings, one in May and one in June. This year we are doing it all at once, which some people have asked for, and we'll see how it goes compared to the past couple of years. It means that we're going through all 25 or so articles tonight. Okay? And without further ado, we'll begin. Article 1 concerns the annual report. It is moved to pass over Article 1.
Second.
We have a second. Let's open it up for discussion. Yes, sorry. The mic in the back, please.
Peter Gundelfinger, 94 North Cross Road. The first question I have is, I've lost track. How many years behind are we on this report? It seems like this is an annual Passover.
Sure. I think I'll direct your questions to Ray.
8, I think.
I'm sorry?
8, I believe.
8 years behind. And I've been a resident for approaching 30 years, and I think the vast majority of those years we had an annual report every year religiously. And I don't know if it directly coincides with the appointment or the election of the current select board, but I'm just wondering if the select board can explain why this isn't considered a high priority, considering that it's a statutory duty of the select board.
You want to go first? Go ahead.
Well, if you were ready, go ahead.
Well, I can't speak for the board, I'll speak for myself. It is a priority for me. Ray and I have spoke a few times over the last year trying to get somebody hired for this position. The problem has been, for this year, the turnover in town hall. Ronnie retired in February. Without going into great deal, she missed a lot of time prior to that. Ray, since almost last town meeting, has been covering as administrative assistant, an interim tax collector, interim treasurer, trying to keep the town hall running, and has done a remarkable job keeping it running. Prior to that, I think it was just one of those that statutorily it's required, but it just didn't hold what was going on elsewhere. Everybody has flaws. I would say that's probably the one flaw that Ray might have, is that the town report isn't the one that comes to the top. And most of the time I'm okay with that and I'm looking at Vicki, between the work that we've done with Energy Commission for the last 10 years, that has taken up an enormous amount of time, but we've seen great results out of it. Just this year alone on our, John, you're going to help me with a number. Street lights alone, we're saving 6,000.
I think it's even more than that, because we took 2,000 of it to,
Slide into an account, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that the board has priorities, but I don't know if the energy work is a statutory requirement. It's been 8 years since we've seen an annual report, and as you know, I've spoken to this practically every year for those probably 8 years. And we keep seeing it get passed over, and excuses, whether they're legitimate or not, are made. And then the following year, we don't see an annual report, and it's passed over again. And another thing that I don't understand is, during that almost 30-year period, I don't think that we had as many people working in the town hall, and somehow that report was generated. So I understand that it sounds like you have your priorities, but those priorities may not be a statutory duty like this one is. I had one of the selectmen at one time a few years ago, or several years ago, I don't remember when, tell me that we don't have to worry about that law because that law has no teeth. I don't know if that is the attitude of the entire select board, but I would like to see an annual report, and I've suggested that you work backwards. And I'm wondering if you can make a commitment to do the fiscal year 2020. Is that the one starting in July 1st?
Yes.
I'm wondering if you can make a commitment so that next year at this time, we'll have an annual report for fiscal year 2020.
That one wouldn't come out until mid-July, or at the earliest, late 2020. So next year, what you would be hoping for is the annual report for this year, fiscal 1919. And I believe our plan is to continue with the back ones and come up. I will correct one thing. I know 8 years is how far we're behind, but a couple of years ago, we put out 2 or 3 years worth. So it hasn't been 8 years since we've put one out. We did catch up a couple of years ago, with a few.
Yeah, so I was looking at this law, and I'm far from a lawyer. I don't know. I don't even know if this applies anymore. But as far as whether the law has teeth or not, it looks like there is a section in the Massachusetts general laws where each of the selectmen is liable for $50 per year for every year that you're behind.
Get mine from my wife, will you?
Okay, so I'm assuming that I don't know if people were aware of that or not, but and obviously I don't know if the state is enforcing that law, or if they're sending you a bill, or if the town is paying those fees, or how it's working.
I have a question. In the explanation here, it says that the hope is that when the administrative clerk is hired, they hope that will make a difference. In the past 8 years, has there not been an administrative clerk?
No, that is a new position. We funded last year, but we're unable to fill it because of doing the other.
So it sounds, though, as if we were able to hire the new part-time administrative clerk, that would make it possible to, get some of these backlog annual reports.
So does the select board have a projection of how long it will take the town to catch up on the annual reports, assuming that you're going to work from the past up to the future?
What's your hope, Ray?
I would expect a couple of years.
And what is the reason that we can't work backwards, so that we can see a current annual report and then generate the other ones in arrears? Because for me, I think that the reason that any entity, including a town, would have an annual report, and I'm assuming that the state requirement is for transparency. I don't know. I mean, I've read in the paper that a lot of towns are starting to open up their books and put that type of information online. I don't know if Gill has considered that, but to me, a lack of an annual report is a loss of transparency, and it seems to me that we ought to be doing an annual report for the latest year first, rather than do a lot of work on something that nobody really cares about 8 years ago.
We had a hand raised in the front. Bring the microphone, please.
I had the same thought about working backwards. I'm Tupper Brown. I live on River Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had the same thought about working backwards, and I mentioned it recently, so I'm with you on that. But what I wanted to say is that I think it's pretty clear that the reason that you've seen this big change from, the last 23 years to the 23 years ago and then the last 7 years, is that we have experienced an enormous increase in state requirements and other management that our staff has to take care of. And so my answer to you is, if you want all these back town reports soon, let's let the town pay for it. We could hire somebody and put a lot of money into it and get it done. But I think it's extremely unlikely that, given the work that is required of town administrations, that we will be able, even with a new position, to catch up very quickly. And it's because there's so much work. So either we pay for it or we don't. It's my view.
That's why I'm suggesting that we work backwards, because it would be nice to have...
Let's pass the microphone back, and then we'll wrap up this discussion on Article 1.
I don't have anything more to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes, John?
before we wrap this up, I just wanted to clarify something quickly and make a comment of my own. And the comment of my own is that it was explained to me that working from the older town reports and working up until the present date gives a foundation to build on each year and gives continuity. And I think it was the idea that it would be easier for the person that's doing it to do it in that way and build from one year to the next. Certainly, if there's an outcry for going the other direction, that can be reconsidered. The point of clarification that I wanted to make was the the report of someone on the select board saying, well, this law does not have any teeth, why should we do anything with this? And that really took me by surprise. And I just wanted to clarify in this room for the people that are here, whether that was potentially a member of the current sitting select board that said that, or was this at a prior time, and that's why it's such a surprise to me.
Yes, please.
Good question.
Yeah, John, I don't, apparently you don't remember, but we were at the Discovery Center at a concert, and you told me that maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
I said that the teeth had no law. I mean, the law had no teeth.
Yes, you did.
Well, your recollection of it is different than mine, Peter.
Okay. To remind everyone where we are, we're on Article 1. And to remind everyone what the motion is to pass over Article 1. Unless there's further discussion, I'm going to call for a vote. Okay. All those in favor of the motion on Article 1 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. Article 2 concerns the town officers, particular town officers. It is moved to elect Edward J. Golombeski and Clifford C. Hatch as field drivers and the Regional Animal Control Officer as assistant field driver, and elect the Select Board as fence viewers, measurers of wood, bark, and surveyors of lumber, all for 1 year.
Second.
We have a second. Let's open it up for questions or discussion concerning Article 2.
How you doing? I left you a gift.
If we have no discussions, perhaps one of these days I'll get my father-in-law, Clifford Hatch, to come in and give a bit of history on these positions. But if there's no further questions or discussions, all those in favor of the motion on Article 2 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. Article 3 concerns funds for road work. It is moved the town vote to accept and spend any sum of money that might be made available from state or federal funds for road work for the fiscal year 2020, and for the Chapter 90 type funds, authorize the Select Board to enter into contracts with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Highway Department, and authorize the Treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, to borrow in anticipation of reimbursement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, questions or discussions? Questions or discussion on Article 3? Yes, we have a microphone in the front, please.
So I'm Claire Chang. I live on Grove Street. Sorry. And I'm the chair of the Finance Committee, and I just wanted to iterate that the Finance Committee recommends this article by a vote of 5 in favor and none opposed.
Any further comments on the motion on Article 3? Okay, all those in favor of the motion on Article 3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by unanimous vote. Moving on to Article 4, which concerns the Quintus Allen Trust. It is moved the town vote to accept any sum of money that might be made available from the Quintus Allen Trust during fiscal year 2020, and authorize the Select Board to expend such funds in support of the Gill Elementary School.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. Do we have any questions or discussion? Thank
Again,
you, Claire.
the
You
chair...
don't have to tell us what road you live on again.
I don't? Oh, good, because I can't remember. Chair of the Finance Committee. So the Finance Committee recommends this article also by a vote of 5 in favor and none opposed.
I thought she could hang on to it unless somebody else was talking.
No questions or further discussion? All those in favor of the motion on Article 4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by unanimous vote. Sure, not a problem. Anyone else? Let's open some windows. On to Article 5, which concerns the recycling processing services for the town of Gill. It is moved the town vote to authorize the Select Board to enter into a 10-year contract commencing on July 1st, 2020, with the qualified vendor selected by Mass DEP through a competitive bid process for recycling processing services for the town. Subject to the Select Board's determination, the contract is in the best interest of the town and subject to the town meeting's approval in the spring of 2020 of funding for these services. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. Any questions or discussion about recycling? We have a hand in the back. Microphone, please.
Yeah, just wondering.
Just your name, if you could, please. Thanks.
Peter Gundelfinger, North Cross Road. I'm just wondering why it's a 10-year as opposed to any other term. Is this a standard length for this type of contract?
Anyone care to address this question? Ray?
So it's a state-owned facility. It's Springfield MRF. The state decides how long they're putting out the contract to their vendors. I think likely due to the complexity and the time and the cost of this bidding process, the state just decides that I believe this one's it's a 5-year contract with a 5-year renewal. So,
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on Article 5? Okay, all those in favor of the motion on Article 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by unanimous vote. On to Article 6, which concerns the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund. It is moved the town vote to accept Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F 3/4, which establishes a special revenue fund known as the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund to reserve cable franchise fees and other cable-related revenues for appropriation to support PEG access, that is, public educational and government access, services and oversight, and renewal of the cable franchise agreement, with the fund to begin operation for fiscal year 2020, which begins on July 1st, 2019.
Second.
We have a second. Any questions or discussion? Thank you. Claire?
Technology. The Finance Committee approved this motion unanimously. Thank you.
We have a question in the back.
Peter Gundelfinger, North Cross Road. I'm just wondering why we wouldn't want to keep it in the general fund. Is it because of the contract with Comcast that we have to move it to this new fund? And also, as a second part of this question, we have like close to $96,000 in the fund. What would we possibly use all that money for in terms of videotaping? I mean, I don't know what the plan is, but that's a huge amount of money that we've accumulated. Why wouldn't we want to keep that in the general fund?
Mr. Moderator,
Sure. John?
we would like to keep that in the PEG Access Fund so that it's able to be used for PEG purposes, mostly in the interest of transparency and keeping the spirit of open meeting laws and letting our electorate know what we're doing. Kind of like annual reports, only more detailed and more often. The fear is that if this money were put into the general fund and not earmarked for PEG purposes, that it would quickly get eaten up by the general fund, and we would lose the ability to buy equipment to replace worn-out equipment. We would lose the ability to pay small amounts to the people that are running the equipment. We seem to have a shortage of volunteers for boards in this town, so the few people that are doing things are doing more with less. That's part of the reason that our town administrator is loaded up with the work that he's doing, and we are not able to do some of the things that we would like to do that don't rise to the top. So those are the two reasons for wanting to keep the PEG Access Fund as a separate fund, and why we feel that that amount of money will be useful as cable fees become less common, possibly, and the source of these funds dry up to some extent.
How long?
With a microphone, please, in the back. Thank you.
How long has it taken us to accumulate that $96,000?
Ray, do you know that? You've been keeping track of it.
This current year, I think we got around 13,000, maybe a little bit more than that. Probably around that. The previous year, before that, we were getting 15 to 18,000 under a different cable license.
So we're appropriating 12,000 this year for PEG, which means that we'll continue to accumulate. Part of the question was what, with $100,000+, what do you foresee would be the type of PEG expenses that we would expect to incur with those funds?
Anyone have a question?
There's a hand in the back of the room.
I've been on the Cable Commission and I've been recording
Can you introduce
select board
yourself?
meetings for, 4 or 5 years.
Your name?
Your name, please.
Oh, Janet Masucci, French King Highway in Gill. The first couple of years I was a volunteer, and I spent a lot of time, in addition to recording, to learning how to do all this stuff. And we just have a new system that we're using today. We upgraded from another system that we had maybe 5 years. The formats keep changing. We have to keep keeping up with, the kinds of files that they want to broadcast. We've just put some speakers so we can amplify the room. The thing is that this money has been coming from a percentage of television cable, which I see as diminishing as people are streaming more and watching less broadcast TV. So maybe we have a stockpile right now, but I'm not sure. I think the income is going to keep decreasing. And the reason why we have so much is because we were getting it for years when nobody was broadcasting. Nobody was initially. That's why it built up.
And just to clarify, my understanding is that the purpose of these funds is to, for open meetings, for people who can watch these on their television, these meetings that are broadcast live, and for the purpose of recording select board meetings and for annual town meetings. Is that correct?
Public, educational, and governmental.
Okay.
PEG.
Does that answer your question? Yes, go ahead.
So does that mean it could be used for the school?
Anyone care to answer this question? We have the hand in the back.
I've been doing the select board meetings, the annual town meetings, and occasionally I've gone to the school and done some meetings. There was a question about combining the 5th and 6th grades, and there was a meeting at the elementary school, and I recorded that. And sometimes I do committee meetings, and any kind of governmental meeting, any committee meeting could be recorded using our town equipment. I also have recorded concerts on the Common and the pig roast and other kinds of cultural events that happened in town, and that could expand if there were other people who wanted to be involved and wanted to learn how to use the equipment.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion on Article 6? Yes, we have a hand over here.
Excuse
me. Bill Tome from Boyle Road. How is this money being held now? I know we had this discussion a couple of years ago when this first came up, and I advocated for passing this law, and you balked at it. So is this in a revolving fund now, or what? How are you keeping it separate?
Who would like to address this question? Yes, Ray.
It's in the exact same kind of account that we're creating. The state needs us to pass this section of Mass General Law. The accountant's going to move it from one account number to another account number. There will be otherwise no change. It's just to satisfy the state.
Any further questions on Article 6?
Just a point.
Sure, yes.
Just a point of clarification. With the new cable contract that we signed, the 10-year agreement, we agreed to a lower percentage of the revenue. So that revenue is most likely going to continue to fall a little bit with people going off of cable, as well as we went from 4% down to 2.5%. And so that's some of what you're seeing in terms of the drop-off. And we don't know what's going to happen in the future with the FCC in terms of costs that could be coming at the federal level. There are rumors that we possibly could be paying Comcast in the future, which would have to come out of these funds. So they could be depleted fairly quickly if that goes through. So I'm in favor of having this buffer. Yeah.
Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion on Article 6, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by unanimous vote. On to Article 7, which relates directly with the previous article. It is moved the town vote to have the town accountant transfer any balance as of June 30th, 2019 from the existing PEG Access Fund, account number 271, to the new PEG Access and Cable Related Fund. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do you want to discuss this any further? If not, all those in favor of the motion on Article 7, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by unanimous vote. Article 8 also concerns the PEG Access Fund. I think I'll switch from saying PEG to PEG. It is moved the town vote to transfer $12,000 from the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund to provide for PEG Access operations and other municipal cable related expenses for fiscal year 2020. Do I have a second?
Second.
Anything else? Any further questions on this? Okay. All those in favor of the motion on... Oh, yes. Okay. Question or a point of clarification from the front.
I think it's important to put this into the audio record because it is being taped. People who watch this in the future or will not have necessarily a piece of paper in front of them. So I wanted to reiterate that both for Article 7 and for Article 8, that the Finance Committee voted all in favor unanimously for both articles. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. That's a good point. At the bottom of the explanation, you can see, we can all read here what the Finance Committee voted on each of these articles, but it's not in the audio record unless someone says it, or video record. Any further questions on the motion on Article 8? Okay, all those in favor of the motion on Article 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by unanimous vote.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
as we move forward, I would like to expand on what Claire just said about, and what you said about the written text about the Finance Committee recommendations not being available to the people that are watching this. The same thing goes for the descriptions that are below the motions. And my question is whether maybe we should take the little bit of extra time and get the descriptions in there too, so that that's on the audio record. Or not. I certainly
I'm looking
go
to
either
see
way.
how long some of these descriptions are.
Right.
Oh, yes, we have a hand in the back. Microphone, please. We're holding off on Article 9 where we have a bit of discussion.
I would suggest that rather than doing that, maybe they be archived on the town website and maybe have that as part of the video presentation, that these types of documents, because right now this one is available online.
Right.
You could just put something on the video that refers them to that document.
I think that would be possible. My understanding of these discussions or these explanations is that all of us have the chance to receive this in advance, either hard copy or online, and get a chance to make sense of what is often language that is not so easy to understand. And in advance of coming to the town meeting, I would be my inclination as well, is to not read the explanations.
I would be fine with that, and that doesn't slow the meeting down, as long as people have access.
Okay, moving on to Article 9. Article 9 concerns some revolving funds in departments of the town. It is moved the town vote to authorize the listed revolving funds per the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, for which revenues will be deposited into the funds and expended to pay related costs as recommended by the Select Board, and total expenditures for the fiscal year beginning July 1 next will be limited to the amounts listed, with all unspent money remaining in the fund at the end of each fiscal year.
Second.
We have a second. We could, as we often do in the omnibus budget, go down department by department if anyone has a question, or possibly not. Claire, do you have a comment?
So again, the Finance Committee voted all in favor for this motion.
Any questions or discussion? Oh, yes, we have a hand. Microphone, please, in the back. Yeah.
I'm sorry, are we referencing the omnibus budget at this point, all of those lines, or is that later on?
I don't believe so. I may have confused it by mentioning the omnibus budget. I was recommending that we could, as we do with the omnibus budget, go through each of these line by line if anyone had a question.
Okay. No, I don't have a question.
Apologize for any confusion. If no one wants to take me up on that offer, then I think we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 9, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So moved and declared by unanimous vote. Oh. Were there any opposed? Sorry, Linda's pointing out that I may have forgotten to ask if there are any opposed. Please signify by saying nay. No nays? Okay, so moved and declared by unanimous vote. Article 10, which concerns salaries or compensation for several town officers in the town of Gill. It is moved the town vote to fix the salaries or compensation of several officers of the town as follows, plus any cost of living adjustment that may be provided by the town. Constables, each posting, $20.40. Moderator, annual town meeting, $144. Special town meeting, each, $25.50. Select board chair, $2,633. Second and third member each, $2,393. Board of Assessors chair, $3,197. Second and third member each, $2,906. Board of Health chair, $1,442. Second and third member each, $1,320. Town clerk, $21,631. Tax collector, $24,360. Additional as sewer fee collector, $684. Treasurer, $21,966. Registers, 3 members each, $61.20. Town clerk as chair, $98. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Yes, Claire in the front, thank you.
So here, is this not working, or is it?
Now it is.
Oh, okay. Here, the Finance Committee voted 4 in favor and 1 abstention due to the presence of Peter, who is also the treasurer and had to abstain from voting.
Do we have any questions or discussions for the motion on Article 10? If not, all those in favor of the motion on Article 10, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by unanimous vote. On to Article number 11, which concerns a cost of living adjustment. It is moved the town vote to raise and appropriate by taxation $16,470 to provide a 2.8% cost of living adjustment for all town employees and elected officials. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yes, Claire, please.
Again, the Finance Committee voted 4 in favor and 1 abstention due to conflict. Thank you.
Any questions or discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion on Article 11, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. Article 12 concerns the omnibus budget. It is moved the town vote to raise and appropriate by taxation $1,624,717.0 and transfer $64,300 from sewer use fees and appropriate $98,800 from fiscal year 2020 estimated sewer receipts for a total appropriation of $1,787,817 for the maintenance of the several departments of the town and for other necessary charges in accordance with the amount recommended by the Select Board.
Second.
We have a second. And I think we have found it useful in the past, because there's a lot of information here, to turn to the omnibus budget. There are 4 pages, 2 pieces of paper printed on both sides each. And we'll begin with, we'll go through this here. We'll begin with general government, this section here. Do we have any questions or discussion in this section of general government? We have 2 hands. Tupper, do you want to start, and then we'll get to the question in the back?
Yes. Is this the first year that we have eliminated pennies from our budget?
Does anyone care to address this?
No, it's not.
I
Or
think
Ray?
this is our second year.
It's the second year. All right.
So,
I thought I was promoting that this year, but we've already done it. Great.
The mic needs to go to the
yes,
back.
microphone in the back, please.
Peter Gundelfinger, North Cross Road. I have a question on line item 5 under that section. We're showing an 8.9% increase, and it says it's wage scale promotion and step increase for town admin. Those are the people in the town hall, and what does that mean? These are due to promotions. It's not cost of living. So the cost of living increase is in addition to this, right?
Okay, we have a question.
And
Anyone?
Randy's got
Yes.
his hand up.
Yeah.
Yes, the cost of living increase would be above this. This is a promotion to Ray. The select board changed his title and his position from administrative assistant to town administrator. On the wage scale, that's a different position. It gives him, I don't want to use the word authority, but more authority over the department heads. Allows him to make decisions between select board meetings so that people like the chief of police or the fire chief can get answers to questions without waiting 2 weeks for the next select board meeting, quite most cases.
We have a further question.
Okay, so just to clarify, the line item that we had on one of the previous questions includes this 8.9% increase for that position, right?
The COLA does not include this.
No, not the COLA, but where they were listing the amount of money that each position was getting paid.
That's not one of the positions that's listed on that.
Oh, it's not
No.
listed.
No.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Those
Those
did not
positions
change.
were
Those were
elected.
level funded from last year, those other positions.
I see.
I
So
believe I believe that was in the description.
okay, so effectively that Ray's position is getting like a 12% increase, including the COLA.
A little over 10 and a half, probably.
Well,
Okay.
9, 10, 11.
Yeah, okay. I understand.
Yeah, a little over
Thank
10 and a
thank
half.
you.
Thank you for questions. Okay, we have another question.
I'm Steve Bathory Peeler, Mount Herman Road, and I was a few minutes late, so sorry if I'm asking a question that has already been addressed. But just curious about the town council budget, and I've looked through and tried to find numbers there, and I don't see them. I'm wondering what we pay for our town council.
Sure, anyone care to address this question?
Line 16. Yep.
So by town council, you are meaning the lawyer the town hires. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Thanks.
Any further questions in this general government section before we go on to the next section in the omnibus budget? There are no further questions in that section. We have public safety, line items 31 to 35. Any questions or discussion concerning concerning this section? If not, we'll move on to Public Works on the back of that page, beginning with line item 37, ending with line item 48. Any questions or discussions with this part of the omnibus budget? If not, we'll move on to the next section, Health and Human Services, line item 50 to 56. The last section on this page, Culture and Recreation, line item 58 through 62. Any questions on that section? If not, we move on to the next section, which is on the following page. Page 3 of 4. Line item 64, fixed costs through 73. Any questions or discussion on this section? Yes, we have a hand. Microphone, please. We have two hands, in fact. Where's the microphone? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, line item 66, the Mariamonte loan.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, line item 66, the Mariamonte loan. Can you just give us a quick update on that and why we're deciding to pay down? Does that have to do with interest rates on the rise, or?
Exactly.
So, John, you'd like to address that? That's it?
That was my one-word answer.
Ray has more.
Okay, Ray?
So I'll just echo that interest rates are the main reason for speeding up the pay down on the loan. We go back 3 years ago, we were paying 0.68% interest, and then it jumped to 0.88 and 1.3, and now this coming year we're at 2.5. And it was felt that, well, the current year's interest is $2,000, and when the interest was 800 or so, well, that was cheap money. Now the money isn't so cheap. So attempting to pay off this loan faster.
Yes, microphone. Thank you.
I'm Ray Steele, Main Road.
Ray, did you make sure the microphone's on? Okay, hold it a little closer to your mouth. Thanks.
It's Ray Steele, Main Road. Only because Maria Monte was brought up, maybe a little bit outside of the money part of it. Are we ever going to do anything with that land?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Are we ever going to do anything
Thank
with
you.
that land besides hay it?
Anyone would like to address that question? Anyone like to clarify? I think I know where that land is. Could someone please clarify where this land is that Ray is referring to?
Across from the Riverside Cemetery on Main Road.
So near the
Main Road.
near the bus depot,
Yeah,
right?
diagonal.
Just so everyone knows where we are. Yep. Anyone have want to discuss or any of the select
I'll take a
board?
shot at it.
Ray.
I'll
Oh
take-
yes, please. Thank you.
My best understanding of it is because a municipality owns it, and that the findings are there quite possibly could be Native American burial grounds there, that pretty much we aren't able to do much with it that would disturb the soil. Haying is a good option, and that's one of the few. We have talked at upper level of maybe like a ground source solar, but we haven't, quite honestly, Ray hasn't had time to go into that and see if that's even a possibility, or financially whether it makes sense. But there's not much we will be able to do with that property, I don't believe.
We have another hand in front.
She's on her way.
Thank you for your efforts running the mic back and forth. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the other big restriction on that property under the same Massachusetts statute is the town is not allowed to sell it or even give it away. So the town has to own it as long as the possibility of a Indian burial ground is deemed to remain. So the only question is, what can we do with it, on the surface?
Yes, we have a hand in the back on the same. We're in the section fixed costs of the omnibus budget, possibly still on line item 66, Mariamonte loan.
Thank you, Tupper, for clarifying that. Because my question was why wouldn't the town just, if the land is useless, why not just default on the loan and let the bank take the headache?
Anyone want to further wrestle with this? Any other ideas, bright ideas on what to do with the land? Yes, we have a hand.
I'm Kate Carpenter from
Thank
North
you.
Cross Road.
My memory is not as good as it was once, I'm sure, like many others. But I do remember at the end of the radar that was done on the property of Mary Monte, that there was a meeting in this room. It was a very dramatic meeting in which some of the reps from the tribes, the Narragansett tribe, Doug Harris was here, John Perry was here from the Wampanoag Gayhead-Aquina tribe, and there was a good deal of energy shared, I think, by people in the town and people from the tribes who wanted to see a cultural center built on that land and were interested in helping to do that. And that energy was very potent and exciting at that time. And there are many more matters than the tribal reps can pay attention to, as there are many more matters than the select board can pay attention to for them as well. So people are so busy, and they have been as busy as everyone else in terms of their activity in the area, particularly because of the Battlefield Grant, which is ongoing, and Gill is represented in that effort. So that's my memory. Just to add to it, there has never been a statement by any one of those groups that no one is interested in working together with the tribes to create some kind of a real educational resource on the land. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on this particular section of the omnibus budget?
Only a comment.
Yes, a comment?
And that comment would be, we have very few options of what we can do with that land. Ground-mounted solar was brought up. I don't even know if that would fly, in that covering that piece of land and putting a fence around it is exactly what the white man has done to the people that were here before us, and I think that would be very much resented. And I don't think we can even do that much.
Just question. Does the town manage to find someone to hay that property every year?
Yes.
Okay. Just curious. Any further questions on this section, fixed costs? We'll move on to the next section of the omnibus budget, starting with line item 75, the FERCog assessment, ending at line item 81. Any questions or discussion on this section? If not, we'll move on to the next section of the omnibus budget, the education, line item 83 to line item 87. And I'll just make a point to say that we're very grateful to have with us this evening the superintendent, Rick Martin of the Franklin County Tech School, and Superintendent Michael Sullivan of the Gill Montague Regional School District. Does anyone have any questions or discussion on this particular section? Yes, we have a hand on that side.
Since there's no numbers on this page, is the Gill Montague pulled out and considered separately?
That's a good question.
Yes.
That's a separate article?
Article 30.
Okay, so we'll get to specific questions, I guess, on that budget, which I believe is the blue sheet in your handout. So we'll pass over this for the moment, and we'll go to this section here, which continues on to the back, which I believe is a summary. Yeah. Any further questions on the omnibus budget? Yes, we have a hand in the front.
Yeah, this is not a question, but a suggestion. Tupper Brown River Road, and that it arises on this page 4 of 4, the summary. The summary is a wonderful place to see what's really going on in all of the forest of the detail that we've been looking at. And column E in particular shows you the dollar changes, and the F, the percentage changes by category, major category from past year to this year. And my suggestion is, I don't know if it's a good one, that the select board begin with running through that and explaining it to some extent, or at least pointing it out, line by line before next year, before we address the omnibus budget. So there's some context, so we can see what's going on in the overall budgeting process. That's what I do. I find that those summary numbers are meaningful, and the details are very hard to keep track of.
So let me see if I understand, Tupper. You're recommending that when we address the omnibus budget, that we begin, rather than by each section, but by looking at this overview first and having the select board give some explanation and then go into the individual sections?
Yeah, that would be my suggestion. Provide a context without any voting or anything, just an explanation of what the overall budgeting process looks like this year as compared to last year.
Does the select board want to look at that overview briefly and give some sort of,
I don't think it has
that's necessary?
to do now. I'm just
Okay.
voting a suggestion.
Great. Any further questions or discussion on the omnibus budget, which is Article 12? That's the article we're on. If there are no further questions or discussion on the motion on Article 12, we'll proceed. All those in favor of the motion on Article 12, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. And with that, I think we've possibly reached the halfway point, at least by number, of the articles we are going through tonight. Looking at Article number 13, which concerns the Gill Montague Regional School District. It is moved the town vote to raise and appropriate by taxation $1,642,995 to provide $1,634,027 for its fiscal year 2020 operating assessment and $8,968 for its fiscal year 2020 debt service costs for the Gill Montague Regional School District. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Yes, Tupper.
I wonder if I could ask our superintendent if he feels that the district's budget this year is sufficient.
And Tupper, you're referring to the blue sheet in the handout, is that correct? Could we pass the microphone, please? Thank you.
Michael Sullivan, Gill Montague School Superintendent. I would not say it's sufficient, but it's an improvement over the recent past. We've been able to add 6 professional level positions for the upcoming year. We're really excited about the kinds of things we're able to either return to the district or to add. And often in the last few years, we've been reducing 2 or 3 or 4 positions a year. So what's largely responsible for that is an improved allotment of money from the state in the Chapter 70 accounts. But we're still not really where we'd like to be by a long shot, and we're still not in a place that I would call sustainable, and we're still not in a place where we can provide the quality of education we'd really like to provide, particularly at the secondary level.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone have questions? Yes, thank you. There's a hand up at the back.
Yeah, I have a question for I guess I'm not sure if it's for the superintendent or the board, but why are the capital appropriation requests for like the truck and that sort of thing, why isn't that in the school budget? Are those afterthoughts, or is there some reason why they have to be separate?
Do we have, I appreciate you saying that you weren't sure who to address the question to, because usually what we try to do is to put the question out to see who will answer it. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone care to address that question?
They were not afterthoughts. Oh, I'm Joanne Blyer. I'm the Director of Business and Operations for the district. They weren't afterthoughts, but they were large expenses that it's hard to put $100,000 extra into the budget to buy some capital equipment. And so we went to the town of Montague and the town of Gill to ask if we could put those through as capital items instead.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to add to that.
Sure.
Those type of expenses can be considered one-time expenses, and if you're adding one-time expenses into a budget, you're raising the basis of the budget with the expectation that that budget will stay at that level or increase in more years moving forward. So it makes sense with capital projects to separate them out so that they are one and done, and you have not increased the basis of the budget and the load on the people that have to come up with the funds.
Any further response to that question? Okay. Does that satisfy your question? Yes. Okay. We're on Article. Which article are we on here?
13.
Yes, Article 13. Thank you. Any further questions or discussion on Article 13 concerning the Gill Montague Regional School District, the budget?
I have one comment just while we're on it.
Sure.
We are not spending nearly enough on our public education, to answer Tupper's question. Not nearly enough. We should change that conversation. Thank you. That's all.
Any further discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor of the motion on Article 13, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by unanimous vote. On to Article 14, which concerns the Gill Montague Regional School District Facilities Management Department. It is moved the town vote to transfer $4,656 from the unappropriated funds to purchase and equip a truck for the Gill Montague Regional School District Facilities Management Department, including any and all incidental and related costs. I believe we already discussed this a little. Anything further on this?
Second.
So, second. Thank you for the second. If not, then I will put it up for a vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 14, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by unanimous vote. I'll just point out that as moderator, my job is to slow things down, but I do tend to speak fast, so please let me know if I'm moving too fast. Article 15, which concerns sidewalks and curbing at the Turners Falls High School. It is moved the town vote to transfer $5,333 from unappropriated funds to replace sidewalks and curbing at the Turners Falls High School, including any and all incidental and related costs.
Second.
Thank you for the
Mr.
second.
Moderator,
Yes.
just for clarification for those listening to this, the amount is $5,330 even.
Yeah. I believe I misspoke. Any questions or comments concerning? Yes, we have a hand in the back.
Yeah, Peter Gundelfinger, North Cross Road. I'm just wondering, I don't know, I know the school district is an independent entity, I guess, it's separate from the town, but why, on both of these articles, like the truck and the sidewalks, why, I assume that both towns, the town of Montague and the town of Gill, have dump trucks. And we have people at the Department of Public Works that can do things like concrete work. Why is it that the towns can't just do that work with the equipment that we have rather than have the school district do that?
Do we have anyone who would like to answer that question?
Joanne Blyer, Director of Business. I believe years ago, the towns did plow at the schools. I don't know if they plowed the high school. And so the district needs to have equipment to be able to plow and take care of the fields. and just be able to get from one school to the other, delivering packages and supplies. So we do need the vehicles to move our stuff and our people around.
Yes, we have a further discussion, explanation. Thank you.
Michael Sullivan, superintendent. So just to add a little bit to that, the Turner's Falls High School is owned by the regional school district. It's not owned by the town of Montague. So that's another distinction. If there was sidewalks at Sheffield, then the town of Montague might pay for that. And also the percentage breakdowns, you can see that for the truck, it's 11.64% is Gill's share, because that's Gill's proportion of students in grades pre-K or K to 12. And then the high school percentage of enrollment that is Gill is only 6.5%. So that's a kind of a fine-tuned approach in line with the Gill's enrollment to the schools.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
To address Peter's point of the towns doing that work, that again is probably one of those bygone relics that's good in theory, where you have the people in town that are able to do that, but I would be concerned about the lost opportunity cost, I think I'll call it, of if we have the people in town doing the things that could be done by someone on the school's budget with the school equipment that we're paying for. If we were to take our employees and send them there to do that, either we would have to hire more employees that would not be working other times of the year, or we'd be missing out on some of the work that we need to get done. And again, it's a case of too few people doing too much, which is today's world. And it just seems to make more sense doing it this way.
Any further questions on Article 15? Or the motion on Article 15?
Right.
If not, I'll refer to my cheat sheet here. All those in favor of the motion on Article 15, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. Moving on to Article 16, which concerns the Gill Elementary School. It is moved the town vote to transfer $10,000 from the fiscal year 2019 snow and ice removal expense account, and further transfer $38,461 from free cash, and further raise and appropriate by taxation $5,548 to add a total of $54,009 to the account to upgrade the electrical service, panels, and sub-panels at the Gill Elementary School. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns on the motion on Article 16? If not, all those in favor of the motion on Article 16, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. Article 17 concerns a 5-year appraisal of the real and personal property of the town of Gill owned by First Light Hydro. It is moved the town vote to transfer $4,000 from the released overlay account to add to the First Light appraisal account to be used toward the costs associated with a 5-year appraisal of the real and personal property in the town of Gill owned by First Light Hydro Generating Company.
Second.
Thank you for the second. Any questions or discussion concerning Article 17? Yes. Hand in the back.
Steve Bathory, Peeler, Mount Herman Road. I'm just like to understand more about this question. I don't understand it.
Sure. Is there anyone who would like to give some further explanation? Everyone's looking to Ray.
Not necessarily, just looking to see if Ray's hand was up.
Oh, we have, sure, okay. We have someone,
Bill Tom, I'm the chair of the assessors.
is the microphone on?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, it is.
There you go, thank you.
Right. Every few years, every 5, we have to update our roles and get them approved by the state. Every 10 years, I think we have to do a formal reappraisal of that particular property. We're talking about First Light's property. And to do that costs about $35,000 because you have to we need to hire an outside expert to do it. So in the recent past, we've been setting aside about $2,000 a year. There are other circumstances involved with our relationship with Montague that require us to look to support our own efforts and not in combination with them. And for that reason, we have to look forward to expending the whole amount rather than a portion of it, and that's the sum total.
Bill, before you hand over the microphone, just for those of us who are not sure exactly where the real and personal property exactly is that is owned by First Light Hydro, where is that in the town of Gill? I guess it's been told to me before, but I think I've forgotten.
Specifically, we're talking about the hydro project, which is Turner's Falls 1, Cabot Station, and our value comes from the bit of the dam. We own approximately half of the dam, is in the town of Gill.
Thank you.
Bill, another point of clarification. Does that also include the land on the riverbanks in Gill that are part of the Turner's Falls impoundment that are affected by the Northfield Mountain storage facility?
I think specifically it's the land along Riverside Drive. Is that the correct name of the road?
Uh-huh.
That relates specifically to the dam. And yes, there is, First Light owns land all the way up to
upstream.
Vernon. So although that land is not really a part of the valuation of the dam, of the subject of this article.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion on Article 17? If not, all those in favor of the motion on Article 17, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by unanimous vote. Article 18 concerns the Board of Assessors reevaluation account. It is moved the town vote to transfer $3,000 from the released overlay account to add to the Board of Assessors reevaluation account. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions concerning this article? If not, all those in favor of the motion on Article 17, please. Oh, sorry.
18.
Yes, all those, we're talking about, and we're 18. All those in favor of the motion on Article 18 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. On to Article 19, which concerns the town audit account. It is moved the town vote to transfer $5,000 from the released overlay account to be used toward a portion of the cost to conduct an independent financial audit of the town. Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or discussion concerning Article 19? Yes. We have a microphone in the back, please.
How often does an audit take place?
Good question. Anyone like to answer that? Ray?
Typically every 3 years. Peter and I, the treasurer and I, talked to the auditor last Thursday, and the auditor recommended that we do the next one covering fiscal 19, which is the year just about ending. So typically in that, the audit schedule, the auditor's work would start probably April or May next year. It gives the town time to close out the books, and then it gives the auditor time to get through tax season.
Okay.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
I'd like to explain one thing about what we've done with the last 3 articles is several years ago, the money for the First Light appraisal account would be voted on in one lump sum at an annual town meeting. And it would be an awful lot of money for the budget to swallow in 1 year. And we did the same thing with the Board of Assessors reval and the town audit account. And what we did several years ago, I would say probably 8 or 9, is that we took all of those and split them up so that if they were 3-year, we would do a triennial review. On a triennial review, what we would do is we'd put a third of that aside in each year's budget. If it was a 5-year review, we'd put a fifth of that aside in each year's budget. And that made the budgets much more consistent without the big jumps. And we were able to keep the basis of the budget down, keep the tax rates at their proper level and not artificially inflate them 1 year and then backfill the budget with a bunch of projects the next year because we had the excess capacity to do it.
I think I understood that. It sounds like you're setting aside the money in portion each year rather than waiting for the year you do the evaluation or the audit or whatever.
Exactly.
Right. Any further questions or comments on Article 19? The motion on Article 19? If not, all those in favor of the motion on Article 19, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
There is one thing that I'd like to add is that the last several motions, I don't know where we stopped doing it, where the Finance Committee stopped doing it, but everything so far tonight, any that have not been announced tonight have been 5 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstentions, and 0 absent. So the ones that we've missed, that's how they
Right.
went.
And it hasn't been said because it is in the explanation. I suppose that if there was something different than the 5 unanimous in favor, it would be a point for someone to say that. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Article 20, which concerns the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund. It is moved the town vote to raise and appropriate by taxation $8,738 and further transfer $5,000 from unappropriated funds for a total of $13,738 for the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Everyone knows what the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund is?
There is one question.
Okay, here we
in
go,
the
a
back.
question.
I'm just wondering, Sue
Thank you.
Kramer, Boyle Road. I'm just wondering who this covers, this future health insurance, when it says future retirees. Is it people that get salaries versus stipends versus compensation? I mean, how does it work? I mean, how do you decide who gets, is it everybody who gets paid by the town going to get health insurance when they retire? That's my question.
Question.
No, if they work over
If they-
20 more hours.
20 or more.
Okay, yeah, we have a hand here with the explanation.
Not everybody that gets paid gets health insurance. For instance, the 3 of us all get a stipend. We don't get health insurance. We won't be eligible for it on retirement. Employees, full-time employees that work 20 hours or more, and 3 of the stipended positions, town clerk, tax collector, and treasurer, are all eligible for benefits, eligible for health insurance,
You
making
just
them eligible.
said it was based on how many hours a week they work? Is that?
Those
A
3 are
minimum.
elected positions. It's assumed the job is going to take 20 hours or more to complete the job.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, we have another question.
Okay, so if I understand this, you're saying that the $620,000 is the liability, like the pension liability, and $44,500 $44,540 is what the town has for that. So we're like 7% funded on the pensions.
Anyone like to address this question? Sure, we have a hand in the front.
Peter Turbin, Main Road. I don't think there's one town or city in Massachusetts that has fully funded their OPEB account. Everybody is so amazed at how much it's going to cost for health insurance for other retirees. And this is just, I don't know if the state's mandating it, but it's required in audit reports that they put that in there of how much you're going to owe in the future for retirement for all these expenses, just to show what your liability will be in the future for the town.
Question in the back.
So does the state require the towns to offer these benefits, or is this something that could be grandfathered for current employees and dropped like everybody else in the world has done?
Would anyone like to address this question?
These benefits are state mandated. Anybody that works over 20 hours for a municipal entity is entitled to health insurance. And if the town voted, and this town did some years ago, that they receive health insurance for retirement, then in fact they get it for retirement as well, a certain percentage the town pays. The state law says you cannot take back those benefits. So the truth of the matter is, historically, health insurance, retirement, those kind of benefits were offered to town workers to attract town employees, to attract people to town employment when the town wasn't paying what the private sector paid. The town still does not necessarily pay what the private sector paid, but they do have excellent benefits. The problem is nobody anticipated health insurance costs rising the way they have. And so as the health insurance costs continued to rise, the state really took note of that and created this statute, which basically mandated every town to create these savings accounts and start putting money towards them, so that hopefully in the future, rather than having, because you cover these costs every year, don't get me wrong, you're basically, this is in your budget every year you pay the retirees into Franklin Regional Retirement Account for retirees and for the health insurance. The point of this is to start building up a savings account so that if in fact you want to be able to supplement your budget by paying these, there will be that money in that account.
Any further questions?
In the back.
Yes, we have in the back. Thank you.
Dorothy Starro, River Road.
Thank you.
I'm just curious about the health benefits. So are they getting health insurance after they're Medicare eligible?
The statute requires that once they become Medicare eligible, they go to MedX, and we pay a portion of the MedX premium, I believe. And so once they turn 65, we're still paying, but they are required to go to Medicare and get a MedX plan.
Thank you.
Any further questions on Article 20? If not, we will vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 20, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. Article 21 concerns the Riverside Municipal Building. It is moved the town vote to transfer $3,900 from the fiscal year 2019 town building repairs and maintenance account to add to the account to install a new roof at the Riverside Municipal Building, including any and all incidental and related costs. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone would like to speak to? We have, I believe, the next two articles concern the Riverside Municipal Building.
I can.
Yes.
As Chair of the Capital Improvements Committee. We recommended this. The roof is going to cost much more than this, which is one of the reasons we're setting aside money now. It's not going to happen this year, but we anticipate in the next probably 3 to 5 years, this will be a project that will have to be undertaken. And so we're just trying to put money away for it so that we're not hit with a bigger expense.
Any further questions concerning Article 21? If not, we will vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion on Article 21, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. Article 22 also concerns the Riverside Municipal Building. It is moved the town vote to transfer $15,000 from unappropriated funds to paint the walls and ceiling and install new carpet flooring in the 2 classrooms and replace the concrete steps at the west entrance of the Riverside Municipal Building, including any and all incidental and related costs.
Second.
Thank you.
Point of clarification.
Sure.
Capital Improvements Committee voted unanimously for this.
And the the committee you just referred is different from the Finance Committee?
Yes.
Right.
And the Finance Committee also, I'm speaking for them, but they also voted unanimously for this.
And that was true of the previous article as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Any further questions or discussion? Yes. We have a hand in the back, please.
Suzanne Smiley, North Cross Road.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if the Riverside, the Four Winds School, do they have a multi-year lease or some commitment for future leasing of that space?
Is there anyone who would like to address this question?
It's year by year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ray,
it's a year by year lease that they bring to the select board each year.
Any further comments or questions on Article 22? If not, we will vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 22, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. Article 23, which concerns the Gill Fire Department. It is moved the town vote to establish a fire department SBA Air Packs Stabilization Fund and vote to transfer $15,000 from unappropriated funds into the fund. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I know that we have a few members of the fire department here. Would any of you like to speak on this article? Sure. Microphone here, please.
Back in 2016.
Please, sorry, just your name for everyone.
Chief Wellbeing Fire Chief.
Thank you.
Back in 2016, the fire department was awarded a grant to replace our air packs. It was written by myself, Greg Snedeker, Stuart, and after, 3 years of trying, we finally got it. We asked for $177,000. They knocked us down to $124,000. The packs that we wanted would have cost $8,832 per pack, basically. We have one of the packs up here that we use. The packs that we wanted had a telemetry type system built into them so that the fire chief or the safety officer could track where the person is inside the building. And for some reason, FEMA decided we either didn't have enough structure fires or whatever, that they said we didn't need that part of it. So that brought the cost of the 20 packs down to like $6,200. These are all ballpark figures because 2 of the packs actually have a thermal imager built into them. So the officer in each truck has that capability. Instead of grabbing the handheld larger thermal imager we have, they can have it right on their pack. Steve, what put that on? Right on the pack that they can tell where the seat of the fire is. The life expectancy according to NFPA is 15 years for a air pack. We're actually over in 2016 when we got them, that we were kind of in non-compliance with NFPA, which is basically a standard, but if anything happened to one of our firefighters, NFPA would have come back and said your air packs are outdated. It's kind of the town's fault. So we were scrambling to get the grant. We finally did. So between the select board and the Board of Engineers to our finance meetings, budget meetings, and the finance committee, they decided to appropriate money each year into a stabilization fund to save up for these, because who knows what they're going to cost in 15 years. $6,200 per pack, 15 years, who knows, 15,000, I don't know. Did you bring it? Yeah. That one that Steve has, the thing at the very end is basically the brains of it, so that you turn that on, there's all kinds of bells and whistles that go off. If you start to lose air, don't turn it on. If you stop moving for 15 seconds, you get a light beep, and all kinds of lights start flashing. If you shake a little bit, it goes off. If you don't, it gets louder after another 15 seconds. And after like 45 seconds, it goes into a full alarm, and it's ear piercing if you're in the building. That's so somebody can come in and find you. The mask has a heads-up display, so you can see there's little lights inside the mask. You can tell when you run out of air, you get low, any kind of a malfunction. It has a built-in microphone, because normally when you're talking through an air mask, you sound like you can't hear anything. Yeah, but with the new hands-free one, the microphone is actually on the left hand. The left hand, yeah. So you can hear and you can talk through that. So this is just to put some money away each year, just to anticipate future expenses, which is a great idea.
Thank you. A point of clarification. This motion on Article 23 is to establish a stabilization fund, which I believe is like a savings account for the town, and it's required that we have a minimum 2/3 vote in order for this to pass. Any further questions for Chief Bobian or? Oh, sure. Yes. Microphone in the back, please. Yes.
Yeah, Peter Gundolfinger, North Cross Road. I just need some education on this, because I'm assuming that unappropriated funds or free cash are funds that we have not spent in the current year's budget that we're deciding to transfer into these stabilization or savings accounts, right? And then at the same time, on the omnibus budget, on the last page on line 18, we're increasing the tax rate by 3.2%. So I guess there needs to be a balance struck, but I'm trying to figure out, why would we have such a hefty increase in the tax rate when we have so much free cash, for one thing? I guess that maybe is a question for the Finance Committee. I don't understand, why we're asking for more money in tax assessment when we already have the money. And then the other question I have is, I don't know how Proposition 2.5 works. How do you get a 3.2% increase in the tax rate if supposedly it's capped at 2.5%? Obviously what you're doing is legitimate and legal, but I don't understand how does Proposition 2.5 work in relation to the increase?
Okay. Anyone care to address Peter's questions? And just, I think it's concerning free cash, it sounds like, and also some of the tax increases. Could some of those questions be answered in either the following two articles? this one specifically about the stabilization fund for,
Yeah.
yeah. But concerning free cash, maybe anyone have an explanation for that? Yes, Ray?
So free cash, you're pretty close on that, Peter. It's actually the money that was unspent from last fiscal year, so the year that ended June 30th, 2018, as well as any revenues that came in higher than we expected when we put together the budget and had town meeting vote on it last June. And I know there was the part 2 question. Oh, tax rate.
How does 2.5 work?
Prop 2.5 allows the tax rate or the amount collected under the tax levy to grow by 2.5% each year, and it's cumulative. It's not a one-time, can never go over 2.5% in any given year. You've got this maximum amount that you can accept from, or you can collect from taxes, and we're under that calculated maximum, but it does allow for an individual year to go up by more than 2.5%.
And I would like to add to that a little bit by saying that what we've tried to do here is strike that balance, where that balance is using some of the free cash to keep the tax rate down and using some of the free cash to put money into equipment that we use so that, again, a few years down the road, we don't run into having this huge. We'll take OPEB, for example. OPEB is an actuarial number that the state came up with half a dozen years ago and said, you know, you guys don't have anything in here and you need to have $620,000. So we're behind the 8 ball and saying, we need to every year take some money and put it into this account so that at least we will be closer than we are now. And we're doing the same thing with free cash at various different points in our budget, saying, okay, we had some money that's unspent from last year, and a lot of that comes from receipts that are coming in that we did not know a year ago that we could count on those receipts, like people buying new cars and excise taxes going up, for example. If nobody bought new cars, we wouldn't have those new receipts. If there was not new growth in town, we wouldn't have those receipts. So we have to strike a balance between, we don't want the budget to get really large by having a lot of free cash in it, and we've pared that amount down over the years, probably to $40-something thousand. Can you back that up with any amounts? I know at our budget meetings we sit down and go through what we've got for free cash compared to what we used to have, and I don't have any of those handy. But it's not an order of magnitude, but it's a large amount that we're down in free cash. We're making our budgets closer every year to what we actually spend. And there might have been a part 2 to my answer, but I think I just talked myself right out of it.
Yeah, I'll add one thing to that.
Sure.
If you go back and look at the history too, over the years, we've often incurred some very large debt exclusions. And by putting money aside, that can help reduce in the future. Right now, the economy's doing well. The state revenues are up, but that may not be the case in the future. And we may wind up coming on hard times. And if we have money set aside for projects that we know are going to be fairly sizable, that helps soften the debt exclusions that are inevitably coming.
And the other part of striking that balance that I was talking about before is this year, I believe the figures came out that we're somewhere around $189,000 below the levy limit. So we could have actually increased our budget by more than that 3.2%. We could have spent another $189,000 this year and still stayed under that Prop 2.5 levy limit. And we chose not to. We chose not to raise the tax rate by that much. No, you're welcome.
Yeah.
We have 2 more hands I've seen. I think Tuppers was first. In the front here, please.
And Steve Bath.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. I thought that one of Peter's questions was the very simple, how come we have an increase in the tax rate of 3.2% if we have a 2.5% limit under the law? And I think I know the answer, but I'm not going to try it.
Well, Ray just answered
Ray, Ray did address that, Tupper.
Yes, yeah. So we are, this hopefully will shorten some of the discussion in the following articles, but to remind everyone where we are. We are on Article 23, which concerns the fire department and the stabilization fund for that. I'll just say that free cash, I think, always is a problematic term, and anyone who wants to come with me over the next year, before next year's annual town meeting, with a better term for that allotment of money, I think it would be helpful, because no one knows about free cash. Okay, so the questions about the taxes, we had a hand in the back. Okay, yeah. Again, we're at Article 23. And the motion on Article 23 concerning the air packs for the fire department. Any further questions or discussion? Yes, we have a hand in the back.
So I'm remembering in the old, Dorothy Starrow, River Road.
Thank you.
I'm remembering in the old days, we used to have a stabilization account, period. And we could put money in the stabilization account in flush years. And then when something came up like air packs or fire trucks or dump trucks, we could take it out of stabilization. I'm wondering whether that still exists and whether once we put money into make a new stabilization account that's just for air packs, we have less flexibility. And that may be good because we are always going to need air packs, and maybe we should decide as a town to dedicate funds to that. The other way to do it would be to just put it in stabilization, if that's even still a possibility.
Can anyone address this question? I think a similar came up question earlier in the meeting, and the response was transparency, keeping the money separate. Anyone want to try to address the question further? Ray?
So yes, we do still have general stabilization, as well as capital stabilization, education stabilization, and energy stabilization. The current balances are actually listed in the explanation for Article 24. You're right that there's just plenty of different philosophies for how to save for different projects. Do we put all of our money into the general stabilization and then dip into that as needed? Do we take the route that we're taking and do more cause specific? In this particular case, the air packs for the fire department. It really is the voter's choice. For my personal viewpoint, for something as important as air packs, I think it sends a strong message to have the town create that specialized stabilization fund, that it's saying, we recognize this is an important financial obligation of the town, and not just recognize, but now we're putting money to back that up, and we're starting to save for what's going to be a certain expense sometime down the road.
Yes, we have a hand in the back, please.
Peter Gundelfinger, North Cross Road.
Thank you.
So these stabilization accounts, what does it take to can you get the money out for other purposes if you need to? For let's say, for example, that it looks like you're planning on $15,000 a year into the air pack stabilization fund or somewhere around that per year, right? So that fund's going to very quickly grow. And let's say the fire chief is successful in, he's still going to apply for the grant, right? So if he's successful in getting the grant and we have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the air pack stabilization account, can we use that money for other purposes easily, or does it have to stay in there for air packs?
Do we have anyone who would like to address the question?
Two-thirds vote.
What it would take is a two-thirds vote of town meeting to redirect that money to another purpose. So if we found someday that air packs were not needed because there was some new technology and the state or the federal government were providing that for free, we wouldn't have earmarked those funds for something that we could not use them for. It would be whoever the town meeting members were 15 years from now sitting here deciding what to do with that money, rather than us deciding what to do with it. The flip side of that is I like something like this account, because if I am taking the money that I am paying in taxes and I am earmarking that towards fire protection devices like these air packs, I would like to know that 15 years ago, when that money is being spent, it is being spent on that, and not something that would seem totally frivolous to me, that I wouldn't want to put my money in that account. But yes, to answer your question, it could then be redirected by a 2/3 vote of town meeting.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Yeah, and in case we get lucky again and we get a federal grant in the future, then that appropriation could be voted. Maybe you take half of it, or something like that. Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. I think it's time, unless there are any pressing more questions, to move on from this article. A reminder, we need a 2/3 vote to establish the stabilization fund. All those in favor of the motion on Article 23, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So move and declare by unanimous vote. Moving on to Article 24, which concerns the other stabilization funds of the town. It is moved the town vote to transfer $2,000 from unappropriated funds to be placed into the Energy Stabilization Fund.
Second.
Thank you. Further questions on this specific article?
Mr. Moderator.
Yes, point of
I
clarification.
just want to make it a point that we're putting $2,000 into the energy stabilization account, but I want to thank the Energy Commission again. I think I mentioned it earlier, the streetlights is just one building, or one thing, the buildings that they've done. You wouldn't know it tonight, but this room is so much more comfortable in the winter based on the insulation that we've put in here. And someday they're working on maybe being able to put heat pumps in here that would also give us a little bit of cooling in here at a reduced cost of what we run for that oil boiler right now. So this is a small amount that we put in there to help offset some of the costs.
Any further questions or discussions on Article 20, the motion on Article 24?
I'd like to say that most of the money that has been saved by the work that the Energy Commission has done has gone into the general fund and lowered taxes. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to take some of that and leverage it so that the Energy Commission can do more of the same work and save us more money.
Further questions, discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 24, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. And with this, we arrive at our last article, Article 25, which concerns the tax rate and stabilize the tax levy for fiscal year 2020. It is moved the town vote to transfer $43,000 from unappropriated funds to be used to reduce the tax rate and stabilize the tax levy for the fiscal year 2020. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments, discussion on Article 25? Yes, you have a hand over on this side.
Steve Bathory Peeler, Mount Herman Road. I hope I'm not opening up a can of worms on our last article, but I'm just curious to know if what we know about our population in Gill. Are we growing? Are we getting smaller? We're certainly aging. And what we know or what we think we might know about the next few years, taxes, and aging and population numbers.
Thank you. Anyone care to address that question?
I could take some
Greg,
of that. We are seeing a decline in population. We're also seeing a decline in enrollment in our schools. And the population is getting older. That's just the reality that we're in right now. It's tough because we have been a part of a 30 to 40 year sort of state process of also putting a lot of emphasis on keeping things rural, which can constrain your ability to grow a town. It means we have very small sort of districts where we can actually grow in terms of, not that necessarily that growth is a good thing, but it's just a part of the mix in terms of the constraints that we're under. The other thing that I would mention too is that I think people lose sight of the trajectory between the federal, state, and local taxation, that when you have federal tax cuts, it inevitably puts pressure from the bottom up on local taxation, because there's still things, infrastructure that needs to be done. And so when you're seeing cuts going to the states from the feds, and that trickles down to being cuts down for local municipalities, it just puts more pressure on us to have to raise revenue the only way we know how, which is through property tax, which is fairly regressive, and fees. So we have very limited policy tools. So just, I want to make that connection, that it's important to see that.
Yes, we have a few hands in the back. I think the one on the left there first.
I've read an article in the Recorder recently about potential talks, or maybe they're active talks, with the Pioneer School District to merge. And I think that it's relevant to the previous question. Can you comment on that, and how long of a process would that be before a decision is made?
Sure. I think it's going to take a couple of years. They're in the process of evaluating. We've moved forward to sort of the next step, where you have to have a planning committee formed to take a deeper analysis of what it would look like for those towns to merge and create a bigger district. So that's in the process. And I don't know if there's anyone from the school committee that might want to chime in on that.
Sure.
Jane Oakes. I'm chair of the Gill Montague School Committee. And to follow up on what Greg said, the rough estimate is from the time of the studies beginning to decisions being made and movement being made is approximately 3 years in general.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty long timeline.
We had another hand in the back.
Yep,
Yes.
Duff.
Thank you.
Back to free cash. Has anybody added up these numbers and can tell us how much free cash is left after you appropriate all of this?
Yes, we have Ray.
Okay, so has something dramatically changed? Back when Barb and I were on the finance committee, we always left 10% of the operating budget in free cash, because we only get to appropriate once a year. So there's no money that we can get if we need more money. We can't ask for more taxes until next year. So what kind of safeguards do we have if something happens between now and next year if we have no free cash?
Anyone care to address the question? Yeah.
So the safeguard is the general stabilization fund. Because one of the problems with free cash is on June 30th, when the fiscal year ends, anything that you have in free cash is now unavailable. Until the state certifies free cash, which can take anywhere until perhaps January. It's a lengthening process from what it used to be. So it's safer to, in terms of financial flexibility, and what if something happens, it's safer to essentially just put away that money into projects, into the stabilization accounts, so that we don't have this multi-month period of being locked away from our own money.
Further questioning.
So what have we put into general as opposed to all these specific little pots? Stabilization.
Right.
And Aren't there things that, like stabilization is specific about what you can spend it on? Yes, doesn't it have to be a capital expense in order to use the stabilization fund?
General stabilization is whatever 2/3 of the voters agree to spend it toward. It can be operating, it can be capital, it can be anything. Some of the particular purpose accounts, the air packs, the capital stabilization, when those stabilization funds are created, we're stating what the purpose is so that that's binding that money to that purpose, unless 2/3 of the voters agree to repurpose the money. We have 244,000 in the general stabilization. The other amounts are listed above. All told, we have, it's well more than 10% of the operating budget spread out amongst the stabilization funds. The current state guidelines on best practice is between free cash and your stabilization funds to have at least 10% of the operating budget. So we're above that guideline.
Ray, am I correct in understanding that also it's not, we don't have to wait until next year's town meeting? We have special town meetings like we had this past winter?
As often as we can stand them.
Right. Oh.
We can go into our stabilization account.
Sure.
That's correct. That's money that's more easily accessible to the people in this room because we just have to gather and have 2/3 of us agree to take it out. And that's a check and balance on the select board and the finance committee, and it gives you more control, I feel, because you're able to now, like I said before, direct money into certain accounts, or if there was an emergency, we've got money that's on hand right now that won't take 6 months to come out, but we need 2/3 of you people in this room to agree with us to be able to take it out.
To the gentleman who expressed a concern about opening a can of worms, I just wanted to make clear that this is the people's meeting, and this is for you guys to ask questions, and I think we're all glad to be up here to do our best to answer them.
This is where worms get opened.
Yeah.
Right. Comment?
I just want to piggyback on that, and that is when we set aside like a stabilization fund for the air packs, part of the reason we are doing this is because in the past we haven't actually done a very good job of setting that money aside. We were very concerned at the time when we were applying for the grant that we might not get it, and if we didn't get it, it was going to mean a very large, probably debt exclusion. And we were lucky that we got it, but it was a wake-up call to say, this is an expense that we know we're going to have to be thinking about in the future, and when we have the ability to set that money aside, I think it's just good budgeting.
We have a hand in the front.
At a recent meeting of the Select Board and the Finance Committee on the budget, I think it was Greg, somebody raised the question of how much in funds do we have being held for specific projects? It's been appropriated in prior years, like we did some this year, for instance, for the school, and it hasn't been spent, and it won't be spent probably this coming year. Did we get that total together yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
But we
Been
made
too
it through
busy with the
tonight.
budget and town meeting, Ray?
A little bit.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Moderator?
Sure. Tupper, do you have any further question?
No, thank you.
Okay, yes.
I would actually like to move us back to Article 25.
Yep.
And suggest that someone actually read the description under Article 25 because it answers so many of the questions that were asked earlier tonight, as well as answering the questions about this article.
Sure.
And that may move us
As
closer to a vote.
As we move closer to the end of the meeting, is there anyone from the who would like to read this? Or I will read it? Okay, the explanation for Article 25. Free cash is the money that remains unspent in department budgets from the previous year, plus any revenues that exceed what was anticipated when the tax rate was set. The free cash from the fiscal year 2018 was certified by the Department of Revenue to be $128,447. Of that, $4,656 was recommended for use in Article 14, $5,330 in Article 15, $38,461 in Article 16, $5,000 in Article 20, $15,000 in Article 22, $15,000 in Article 23, $2,000 in Article 24, and $43,000 in this article. Depending on the outcomes of the other money articles considered earlier tonight, a different amount may be recommended to be used to reduce the fiscal year 2020 tax rate. But all the previous articles were passed as they were, as the motion was made. So it stands.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I would like to point out that this article is to put $43,000 to be used to reduce the tax rate and stabilize the tax levy. In other words, striking that balance and keeping the taxes lower than it would be if we did not put this $43,000 from free cash towards that use.
Any other questions or comments specific to this article? Okay. If not, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 25, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. So moved and declared by a unanimous vote. Yes, we have a hand in the front. Microphone, please. We're close.
Timmy Smith, West Gill Road, and I promise I'll only take 1 to 2 minutes. Through this whole budget process, Ray has spent innumerable hours developing budget pages, making us, may I, Peter? Making us budget notebooks that we can refer to the various budget lines with all the information and all. And then I hate to think of the time he didn't get to sleep this past week when we had finished developing this, writing the descriptions, the motions, and everything else. So we got out, and I'll make it short, in less than 2 hours and 15 minutes. And for that, Ray, thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. In closing, I'd like to say that I'm Isaac Bingham. I live at 411 Main Road, after making everyone else say. And if you have any questions or concerns about town meeting and how it's run, please feel free to stop by. I think it's a great improvement to have one annual town meeting rather than two. It's not always possible. Maybe we can get it in May when it's cooler, but I know there's a lot of work to putting it together. And stop by if you have any other ideas for the term free cash. But perhaps we're stuck with it. We have a hand. We're about to adjourn. Yep. Sure.
Barb Watson, River Road. A group of us have gotten together, self-described as Gill neighbors, and it's to help one another as we age, to help us age in place. And there's information here, there are handouts. So if anybody's interested in volunteering or interested in receiving services like transportation or a little help at home, or if you have a neighbor that maybe could use those services, please let us know. Thanks.
Okay. And now that we've reached the conclusion of this annual town meeting, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Nice job, Ray.
So this is for you, right? I'm going to give this back to you. You store it in the clerk's office.